Welcome back, garden friends. Got a great episode for you. We're talking all about mulch. We had a video earlier in the week where I talked about it and about the fantastic qualities that mulch brings to your landscape. It slows down and reduces weeds, reduces soil compaction, reduces the soil erosion, insulates the soil's temperature and keeps it from swinging too wildly up or down for plants that are sensitive to either too hot or too cold. It does so many great things, and then I highly recommend using compost as well, but mulch in your landscape. We got it for free this time. You can buy it a lot of different forms. I recommend getting it for free if you can to save yourself on some cash. But in today's video, we're going to talk about how to use the mulch. It's not as, in some cases it can be as simple as just laying it down, but in most cases, especially with landscapes that are already pre-existing, there's some things you might want to do to ensure that you're using the mulch to the best of your abilities. So that's what today's video is about. Let's learn. You can see some mulch being laid down, and so one thing I want you to realize is sometimes if there's not many weeds in your garden, you could probably just thicken up your mulch and just lay it straight on top of your pre-existing mulch material there. You can just add right to it. And so we always recommend having your mulch at least 3, if not 4, in some cases maybe even 5 inches deep, because it will settle, but anywhere 3 to 4 inches deep is fine. But you can see right here, here's an example of some Bermuda grass, and it's growing right into our mulch area here. Luckily for me, it comes up really quickly if you tease it up, because it's not much of this isn't even rooted into the soil. It's actually just growing right into the mulch here. So this is an area where I wouldn't recommend just laying the mulch straight down, because what's going to happen with this Bermuda grass is that it's going to send up those rhizomes and little growth tips, and they're going to shoot right through whatever mulch you put down there, and then you're going to end up having the same problem. So one thing you always want to consider when adding in some mulch into your landscape is doing a little prep work. So what I'm going to do for this area is I am going to rip as much of this out as I physically can to actually get it physically removed. I can weed whack it back a little bit, right? So there's some weeds you could probably just weed whack and trim right to the soil surface and then bury it, and they probably would die. But a lot of the weeds that I deal with here, especially this Bermuda grass, it's going to grow right through that. So even if I weed whacked this down and trimmed it down and to where it was just right at the soil surface or the surface of the mulch, if I bury it, it's going to come right back and grow right through it. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to rip it up, tear it up, and try to remove every last bit of it, and then thicken it up with some more mulch, and then come back, and as any little bits start to grow and peek through, I'll have to rip those out or have my students help me rip those out. In some cases, you'll have a lot of landscapers and gardeners recommend putting down some landscape fabric and things like that. But depending upon where you're at and how much money you got for your budget, I would almost recommend against that sometimes, because it takes so much money and effort. And then here we've done that before, and then the Bermuda grass and nut sedge, depending upon the fabric, can actually just grow right through it. So what I recommend doing is in your landscape here, like we have here, and I'll walk us through, when you're going to be adding in some mulch, you can actually lay down a layer, if not 2, of cardboard right on top of your soil, and then bury that cardboard in 3 to 4 inches of mulch, and then the cardboard will break down slowly over time, and then you're good to go. But you can see here just a little bit of Bermuda grass starting to poke through, because this mulch right here is really fine. This is the one bummer part, is sometimes this batch we got here from a couple years back was really, really fine. The piece is really, really small, kind of micro sized, whereas when you have nice big chunks like right here, they form together pretty nicely, and they kind of mix together all the other pieces, and then it tends to kind of mat down and keep some of those plants out. But I always recommend doing some prep work, especially along the edges here. You can see right here, so sometimes this is where a lot of folks will get problems, and so you want to rip those out, and then I'll make sure that along the edges where your landscape meets concrete, you don't want to have dirt right at the level, right up against the soil, at the same level as this. You want the dirt down 2-3 inches, and then you can cover that with some cardboard, landscape fabric, and then all your or landscape fabric, and then all your mulch, 2 to 3, if not 4 inches of it. What I've noticed a lot of times, and I had this problem at home with my driveway, is the soil is at the same level as the concrete, and then if you put any mulch on that, it's just gonna wash right away in the rain or wind or whatever from gravity and whatnot. And so you actually want to have to dig that out. Maybe I'll show a video of that later, but you're basically going to dig out a little edge where so many inches in, and then so many inches down, and then that way you have a little footing for all that mulch to kind of sit, and that'll keep the weeds from just popping up and poking their heads out right here at these seams where different landscapes kind of meet, where you have your hardscape and your landscape come together. So always do a lot of preparation before you're adding your mulch. Like I said, sometimes you can just put the mulch straight down, but oftentimes you're gonna have a lot more success if you actually prepare the area, realize you got to get mulch at least 3 to 4 inches thick, and so if your soil's at a certain level, you're gonna actually have to dig out some of that soil in certain spots and remove it. So you can see right in here, I have some work ahead of me. Here's a good example. So I've been coming along this edge right here and pulling weeds out last week. I'll probably do some work here, and they're still starting to hang on a little bit. You can see some are pulled out, but you can see they kind of have this tendency to kind of reach. They'll hit the cement, and then they'll shoot up. So the Bermuda grass is always a tough one to deal with. We don't like spraying chemical here at the school, at least not in the landscapes that we work in. And so we got a lot of work to do here. Like, it's so bad right here. It's actually growing through the middle of this lavender, and then it's just kind of destroying the quality of the lavender and its shape. And so a lot of work to be done there. So one of the main reasons why we really love the mulch is because it helps slow down these weeds. So I'm going to get in here. This is the area where it's going to, like I said, a little preparation will go a long way. You rip out those weeds, then you add your mulch if you have to. It's really, really bad. You know, you said you can put down cardboard underneath your mulch if needed, or landscape fabric if you prefer. And then you're usually good to go. But that's what I really want to talk about in today's video, is that there are a lot of methods to adding your mulch and how you do it that'll actually improve. And a lot of it just has to do with making sure your mulch isn't just one little thin layer thick. I know sometimes in some landscapes, people will just get enough mulch just to cover up the dirt. So all you see is the mulch and no dirt. But in these landscapes here, we have it like, it's 4 or 5 inches thick in some spots. No less than 3 for sure. Anything less than that, and you're really not going to get the kind of results or the impact from the mulch, right? You really want to get it in there nice and thick and heavy. But another thing to consider that I want you to think about is when you're growing like woody trees and things, and these ones aren't the best example, or even small perennial plants, and these ones have a lot of suckers in here, but you don't want to ever mound up mulch like up against your trunks, right? You can have it up near it around the root zone and cover the roots, but you don't want to bury your trees or your small plants in mulch. You kind of want to make sure you pull it back away from your plants. So that's another problem that issue I've seen sometimes with my students, or even myself learning, is that you really don't want to leave just mountains of mulch piled up against the stems of your tree. Like right here's an example. This tree right here, a little red bud, we wouldn't want to pile up that mulch any higher than it is at that natural, basically just a thin layer right at the soil surface when you get around the root collar of a tree, right there at the base of a tree. Even these Spanish lavender really wouldn't love having a ton of mulch just piled up against their stalks and stems. It just wouldn't be ideal. A lot of your plants don't really appreciate it. Some can handle it and won't hurt them one bit, but even then you're kind of inhibiting their growth just a hair. Here's a really good example of some growth we've had just this last week. And like I said, here's the spot where the mulch is real thin. It's not as thick as it needs to be, and it's just really like chopped up almost to like a powdered, so it's almost becomes soil. So a lot of these weeds like I said, they're not really rooted into the dirt so much. They're just rooted into that top layer of mulch. So what I'm gonna do is, instead of just trying to smother this out with a big old fat pile of mulch, I'm gonna get in here and we'll do a little prep work. We'll rip all the visible weeds out, especially the Bermuda grass. Not just the stuff that you can see on top, but everything below, the roots, the rhizomes and whatnot. Those have to get removed. Once they do, then I can come in here and I'll put a nice thick layer of mulch in, and then you just monitor it. Then as anything pops up, you trim it, you rip it out, and you're good to go. And like I said, you don't really want to mount it up against the trunks and stems of your plants. You want to give them all space, but you definitely want to have it nice and thick in your garden. And so that's just what I wanted. And so maybe we'll have some footage of this later in the week, but I really wanted to share that with you, because there's a right and a wrong way to kind of use your mulch. It's not as simple as just laying it down. Like I said, if I came in here right now and laid it all down here on these, they're just going to grow right through it and be like, thank you. And then now I just got more plants to pull through the mulch. So it's not ideal. So a little bit of prep work goes a long way. Always keep your mulch, at least 3 to 4 inches thick. Never pile it up against the base of your plants. Use cardboard underneath it, 1, 2, maybe even 3 levels thick. Depends how much cardboard you have and how bad the roots are. And those are usually some good methods to get started. You can use landscape fabric underneath it, but for me, I kind of like the cardboard because you can typically get it for free, and it actually works a little better in the short term, and then over time it just dissolves and breaks down anyways, and so you don't have to worry about it. Whereas sometimes the landscape fabric could be a bit expensive. It may not even do the trick if it's a lower quality one, and then you end up just ripping it out as the plants grow through it anyways, and then it makes it harder to actually use like actual landscape tools. Like when I'm in a landscape that has mulch on top of landscape fabric, I can't really use a hula hoe or certain weed removal tools because they'll just rip into the landscape fabric and cause a bigger mess and cause more holes and makes a bigger issue. So that's a problem. But I definitely want to preach that mulch is great to use in the landscape. Like I said, this one, it really helps us conserve the amount of moisture we have to irrigate. We don't have to irrigate that often in this garden. For one, because of the mulch, another one because of the plant choice, but the mulch really helps. It insulates the soil, keeps the moisture level down, or the moisture level nice and protected, right? And so it keeps it from evaporating out, and so for us it's really great. And even though I do have a few weeds here that I showed you, I kind of let them grow this last week or two just for this video. And like I said, they'll get weed whacked, removed, ripped up, and then we'll get them buried in thick mulch, and we'll do a follow-up video so you can kind of see what I'm talking about. But that's basically it for today. I hope you've enjoyed this lesson and this walk through the garden. Everything looks really pretty out here, and we're going to be getting after it and getting some more mulch in there. If you have any questions, please leave those in the comments below. If you liked it, smash that like button, and if you'd like to come back for more, we'd love to have you. So hit that subscribe button. Until then, happy gardening and best wishes.